Welcome to part 12 of a look at my personal Bally Arcade Astrocade collection. In this box we will continue to explore box 1 of the Bob Fabris collection. This is part 7 of that series, or part 7 of that box I should say. And in this box we cover 5 folders, and they are labeled as Calls, Arcadian Inputs, Bally DOS, a blank folder which seems to have letters and newsletters, and a folder called RF Modulator. I also give a preview of the next 5 folders that will be covered in video 13, and these are folders called W, which contains letters, Arcade Projects, Mail, which is also letters, Stuff to File, which contains articles and letters, and finally a folder called Insiders, which has a handwritten note by me called Box 1, folder 47. So you'll know we're making some progress in this video. Sit back and enjoy me pawing my way through 5 more folders in the Bob Fabris collection. Hi, welcome back to my collection that covers my Bally Arcade, Astrocade. This is video 12 in the series. I'm covering box 1 of my Bob Fabris collection yet again. This is part 7, which means I think I've covered about 30 folders so far. And today I'll be breaking open this box and I'll be covering some more folders beginning way back here. So we'll see what those are. Actually, they begin way back here with the one called, I think Calls would be the first one I look at. But we'll take a look at what I covered last time, and then we'll take a look at what I'll be covering in this episode, and then we'll dive right in. I've covered so much material in the last week or two, and just this box alone, that I'm kind of forgetting where I left off, even though I only recorded within the last couple days. The last video I recorded had several folders, and they were Super Software, software listings by Bob Rosenhaus. Dungeons and Dragons program, it was a collection of programs written by Rich Tetchins. Some programs which mostly were in machine language. There was only 3 or 4 programs in there. And let's see, then we had one called Respond. And I thought there was another one in here, and I'm probably overlooking it because it was thin. But I don't see it. But there was... Oh, Respond and Response Required. There we go. So 2 of those. So there were 5 folders covered in the last one. I'll cover briefly what I'm going to cover in this episode next. But if any of these sound interesting to you, Super Software, Dungeons and Dragons, miscellaneous programs, or many letters that required responses and some that were given in, check out my last video. I'm not even going to give a number because I'm getting mixed up nowadays, but my last video in this series, and you'll be able to read about those or hear about those. And now I'll tell you what I'm going to cover today. Coming up in the next few minutes, we're going to cover 5 folders. These folders are calls, and these are calls to machine language sections of the Astrocade. And this is a compilation that was sent to Bob, and it's weird. When I get into it, you'll be like, wow, that's a lot of work. Then we have Arcadian Inputs. I'm not sure what that is. Bally DOS. This one is I've been looking forward to for a while. I'm not sure how much I'll get into it because these are just overviews, but this one probably deserves an episode all to itself. But I won't be doing that until after I cover this entire collection, and if I ever even get back to it. Then we have one that's just Unlabeled, which I know has some newsletters and stuff that aren't really Bally related, but 1 or 2 of them do have some Bally content. And finally, the RF Modulator, and there's hardly anything in this one, so I'm not really sure what that one's all about. But yeah, that's it. And I'm going to start covering these one by one now. Let's get started. In this first folder that we'll be covering today, it's called Calls. I'm going to open it up here. Before I actually get started with this, I want to say thanks to my friend Quintech Retro. He responded in quite detail as he was watching one of my videos that I filmed a few days ago, and I've already uploaded 1 or 2 since then. So this is not, he didn't make comments about the last video, but while he was watching it, it seems he was sending me text messages, which is pretty nice. He seemed to watch it very late in the evening or early morning while I was sleeping. So it was really nice to hear from you. And I did reply to him already, but I won't reply to him here. And I'm still looking for a way to send feedback in these videos, or maybe I just won't do it. But okay, let's get started. This is called Calls. And Calls was an undocumented basic command that was part of Bally Basic from the very beginning. And it wasn't documented because I don't expect that anyone really expected it to be used. too often. I mean, there was only 1.8K of RAM. I've repeated that number ad nauseum. And so you probably remember it by now. But once they discovered that there was a way to call the onboard ROM, in fact, I don't even think they understood that there were onboard ROM routines at the very beginning, especially the Bally community as a whole. But once they realized that there were subroutines, some people started exploring them not this way. This person, his name is Dieter Heinermann, does explore them. And I'm going to read this letter to you because it's the only letter in this entire box. And it says, August 5th, 1980. Dear Robert, as you can see, I finally got a typewriter. As promised earlier this year, I have called all numbers from 0 to 32,767. A list of the best ones is enclosed. The ones that are not included are the ones that reset, lock, show nothing on the screen, and the ones that are the resets, locks that are repeats. I hope I have not made too many spelling mistakes, as I am German and my English is self-taught. I have also included a table of contents from a Bally booklet someone lent me a copy, totaling 63 pages. I did not send a whole copy, as you might have it already. If you would like a copy, staple a note to my next newsletter or write yes or no on the newsletter, and if yes, I will send you a copy. So till then, many Arcadians prosper. Oh, may Arcadians prosper. Yours truly, Dieter Heinermann. Now that is a pretty cool little letter, I think. But let's dig in and see what he's talking about here. So he's got something called Introduction. Well, he's got a table of contents, Introduction, Memory Map, Screen RAM, Color Mapping, etc. And he goes all the way down to the different parts here. It's up to 55 pages, or 63 pages according to him. But he only includes kind of like the very best of. But what he basically does is he does a call to screen RAM. So this is how he does it. He explains it here. And I'm not going to go into great detail here. If you want to explore this, it's been scanned. All numbers were called with the colons, with and without colons, and with, what is that, a poke? Yeah. So with 10 input, 20 call A, and a program that appears below. And he shows what he did. Now, I'm not sure if he realized that there were easier ways to go about this, but you would have had to know machine language. So he was hoping to like do a call to random points in memory. I guess they weren't quite random because he was going through methodically one screen location at a time, or location in the ROM, to see what would happen. Explanation of abbreviations. What? Bally Basic. So if you have an error, Bally Basic will respond with what. Sometimes you'll put in a not normally in a Bally Basic command, but if you do a call and it doesn't understand what to do, you just actually reset the computer. So it says back to Bally Basic, and then he says good. The cursor appears on the next line or after the printed material and locks the keyboard. So yeah, it says I hope you will find something of interest or use in your programs. So happy hunting. So I'm only going to do this for a couple of the pages, and then I'm going to get on to the next one. But if he does a call to 463, you see a red flash on the screen. And this is just, to me, absolutely mind-boggling that he went through all this trouble one by one without really understanding what was going on. In a previous video, I talked about a program called hex dump content, or memory dump dash hex, and that allowed people to view what was in the memory in either the basic ROM or in the onboard ROM. And what they did with that is they would dump a little bit to the screen, write it down, and then they'd hand disassemble what was in the ROM. Well, this is going at it from a totally different angle to try to figure out what's happening in the ROM. And this is, I mean, I never even would have thought of doing something like this, but if you didn't quite gather what was happening, that there's machine language going on behind it, and this was, yeah, I don't recall this actually being listed, but his name does come up. He might have written some additional letters to Bob Fabris, but I salute this guy. So Dieter, if you ever come across your name here and are talking about this, I applaud you. I really do, because this is so much work went into this, and yet, yeah, it's something kind of incredible, kind of a little bit crazy, but something that a geek like me can enjoy, that there's a philosophy behind the madness here, which is that you did one location at a time. So 1402, 1403, 1413. You made notes of this on a pen and paper and then went through and typed it all up. There's, yeah, something neat. So let's see if we can find something interesting. So if you go to 2193, then you get a calculator plus a sound. But in general, he doesn't get a lot of interesting stuff because he doesn't understand that if you're going to call some of the subroutines that are there, you have to preload the subroutines with information. This all comes up in the Arcadian later. But yeah, I think I'll zoom in a little bit here. And I won't even zoom in. I'll just show a couple of pages. I think I just knocked up, yeah. Sorry about that. I just knocked my screen around a little bit, but it is what it is. Yeah, gosh. This will be the last thing I cover here, and then I'm going to move on because this is confusing to anyone who doesn't. It was confusing to Dieter, who made this, I think, and it's confusing to anyone who doesn't understand what he was going about trying to do. But if he does a call, apparently to 1110, it moves the cursor. Yeah, it's something. So it's possible to understand what is happening here by reading the nutting manual and kind of interpreting it through some other documents that are available on ballyalley.com. The fact that this was done, I would love to hear comments on anyone if they ever tried to do something like this on another computer system. Just do random call to random locations and see what you got back. I mean, I suppose there's someone somewhere who's discovered something this way, but it seems difficult. All right, so let's move on to the next folder. In this second folder, called Arcadians Inputs, we have information that was used oftentimes in the Arcadian for basically news and such like that. And this seems to be early stuff, and this was, I think, before Bob had a different system. And this is just pure conjecture, but the Bob Fabris collection in later boxes is broken down into issues of the Arcadian. And some of the stuff that I find here seem to be for the earliest issues. And well, let's dig into it and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to take this first one here. I don't even know what it says. It's all together. But it says, Dear Robert, I have enclosed some information that might be of some use to you. About Bally programs, to myself would like to get to the listings and program the unit myself rather than trucking tapes around. I'll be sending some game programs soon. This is from Ronald Warren. P.S. Keep up the great work. And I'm going to undo this right in front of your eyes. I think I've scanned all of this. In fact, everything in here has been scanned. But so here's a piece of information. I don't want to get this too confused with that, so I'll kind of put it here. But this is an ad for the Bally Arcade from something called Mart. Here's a small ad. It says, Toys for Big Boys. It's here, Bally Fun and Brains. Available at, what does that say, Video Plus? I don't know where it is, but it's there. I would like to see this. I've never actually seen this in a better way. But it says, Biorhythm video game draws 600 in 2 days. A Bally professional arcade programmed to figure biorhythms was the centerpiece of a 2-day video demonstration December 9th and 10th in Richmond, Minnesota, a Minneapolis suburb. Oh my gosh, are you serious? As Video Plus co-owners Ken Knudsen and Joe Harple watched, Al Kim, Bally's local rep, tapped in dates of birth and that day's date to the Bally's keypad. The machine, using a specially devised program, would flash a chart on the color TV screen for the following 20 days. It would show good days and bad in the physical, intellectual, and emotional areas. Some 600 persons visited the store during the demonstration. Knudsen and Hartle had run the Bally ads from December 5th to December 22nd in Minneapolis and St. Paul newspapers, 5 in all. Knudsen said they sold 35 Bally games at $299 each, plus 50 from other manufacturers such as Atari, Fairchild, and Magnavox. With accessory add-ons to the Bally games, most sales averaged well over $400. Video Plus, which opened August 1st, has had excellent video sales. And large screen, brand sold, wow, I had no idea such a thing happened. I've actually joked many times, not in these videos, but about biorhythms and who actually ever used it and why. Well, I never, ever would have imagined that that cartridge would have been used as a way to sell units. And here we are. I mean, looking back at this collection, I mean, that's amazing. That's just amazing. Okay, What else we got in this little thing? Obviously, I can already spend, maybe I will, maybe I'll just spend the episode doing this one. Our Man in Japan from February 1979. This is all, I don't know what this is about. This is from a magazine called, oh, this is Consumer Electronics. Oh, here's the ad. So this is for Bally at CES. New name, a new language. See if I can't do a close-up here. So this is a Bally. It's a white Montgomery Ward Bally, and it's being demonstrated. So I'm not going to go into detail. If you want to read about it, it's there. Also there is going to be the Bally Intellivision. Check that out. There's the Intellivision game module. I don't know if that's in focus, but I hope so. And here's the Exidy Sorcerer. I mean, this is just full of neat stuff. The Exidy Sorcerer is a really, really, really rare system. What else we got in here? So this is all one ad. So if you wanted to find it, you'd find it in an issue of, let's see, was the Exidy Sorcerer done twice? What did I do here? No, the ad is just twice. So I'm going to pause this for a moment before I continue. I paused there just for a minute or two so I could put the previous paperwork away, but also to look ahead to see what we've got coming up. Just a little bit. I'm still also going to be surprised because most of this is just going to be covered quickly. But here is a short program from someone named, we have Stan, I'm guessing is this person's name, if I can read it right. Oh, here we go. There's a name right there, a little easier to read, Stan Hoard. And he's writing basically saying that when I talked to you over the phone, this is to Bob Fabris, about 2.5 months ago, I asked if anyone had come up with a way to store data generated by a program onto tape. You said at that time no one had done that as you knew of. Well, I don't think anyone probably had by very beginning of 79 or late 78, but eventually they did, and they came up with better solutions than this. And this is his solution. And Bob wrote in his own notes, he said it's complicated. So I don't recall this being reprinted in the Arcadian, but it might have been. Now this is the first time I've come across one of these in my entire collection so far, but in the upcoming Bob Fabris collection stuff there will be more. Now notice here this is blue paper. This is photocopied onto this blue paper, and what Bob did, and I'm aware of this because of later issues, so he would photocopy onto this blue paper here, and the blue wouldn't show up, and then he'd have just this with white, and then so this background would be white, and it says here are some publicity results from the Las Vegas show. Well, what he would then do is then he'd use the copy of this and put it into the newsletter, and he'd add something here. So there was probably another column of information there because there was no wasted space at all in the newsletter. So that's what that is, and there'll be lots of that coming up. Here is a program by Patrick Scott, and this looks like it's also printed on thermal paper, but this is like tissue paper. It's so thin. This is not like some of the other thermal paper I was showing earlier. This one says this routine will dump the system memory. I don't think that one was quite used. Here's a letter that was written to someone named John by Bob, probably to John Collins, because John Collins here includes, seems like his first example of checkers. And checkers was a popular program printed in the Arcadian. This looks like it might have been the very first version of it. And this was actually done all on a typewriter. And there's a whole bunch of hand-printed notes. Wow. Oh, interesting. Bob Fabris wrote here, it says, cheats. Every tie it does, it prints the non-visible. I don't know what that, I can't read what it says. But if you get a chance to try checkers, eventually they had all the bugs worked out. It took quite a few issues, but once they did, it played a good game. Here's a rough draft of John Perkins' work to figure out how Screen RAM worked. I'll flip through that just quickly here. It's all handwritten, and eventually this was typed up. Maybe Bob typed it up, I don't know. Here's some more information about, it says, greetings, Bob. Now, put yourself back in 1979, and you're getting this, a letter in the mail that says something you're learning for the first time, and besides the person who wrote this letter, you may be the first person to hear about it. Something that you can do with your Bally Arcade that no one else has, maybe other people have thought of it, but no one's been able to implement it. And then read this. Greetings, Bob. I've come up with a way to save information contained in registers and the strings on tape. After the main body of the program, add these lines. And so that's this, and it's might have been the first time this was ever talked about, but this was done by Bob Weber, and he made a lot of contributions to the Arcadian in the early days. Let's see what we got here. It says, this is from probably Ernie Sams. Yep. Yeah. It says, to the Chief Arcadian, and it goes on, and there's a letter talking about the math cartridge, the 280 Zap cartridge in baseball. And then this is actually used as a, what do we call it? A tutorial in the Arcadian. And it's written just like this. So since this is written in blue ink, it didn't photocopy very well. And a lot of people wrote letters down the line after that issue came out. They said, hey, I couldn't read any of this handwritten material. And so he reprinted part of it in the Arcadian. So there's that. Here's an early clock program. And clock programs, digital clock programs, were very popular to send into the Astrocade. And the way they worked was they used loops for the timers. So they weren't very accurate over a long period of time. Yeah, and there's that. Here's a letter from November 1978. So this November, keep in mind, November 1978 was going to be just a short time after BASIC was released, and people were probably just getting their hands on it for a month or two, for the people who were the earliest. So, okay, so we've got, this is from Richard Nitto, and I believe he was someone who wrote an article in one of the major publications, one of the big magazines at the time. But here he's saying, thank you for the November 1978 issue of the Arcadians. Although I had already discovered much of what was covered, the section on the keypad and the controller configuration was very interesting. And that was what I was just covering, that was handwritten notes. The arcade is relatively new in this area, but coming on strong. Montgomery Ward is selling the unit locally, and the manager has expressed interest in forming a local users group. Now, isn't that fantastic to hear? I mean, that happened around the country, but then Bally sort of fell out of, I mean, it just didn't do well. And once the system became re-released, it was more of a game console only. So what he includes here is an article on the Z-Grass language, and this was actually reprinted in the Arcadian. The Z-Grass language was what they was hoping to have in the add under, and it would have been, people will sometimes call it BASIC-like, but it wasn't really like BASIC, and it was used. There's no dump of it, unfortunately, so it can't be, that programming language can't be used. All right, what have we got here? This is more information that I don't know what it is. Ooh, time for me to pause and see what we've got here. This is something I semi-remember seeing before. This is a letter from Jim Unroe, and he's basically saying that he was able to connect two Astrocades together, or Bally Arcades, as they were originally known. And he says the enclosed, let's make this so you can read this, right? The enclosed programs should demonstrate how to interface two machines for interactive games and such via a direct wire, telephone lines, etc. In order for the programs to work, you must interface two machines. To do this, get the two machines, and then he explains how to do it using the cassette, the 300 baud cassette recorder. And he explains and has a little picture there of how it should look. And kind of interesting. So let's take a look at his program. And his program is simple. Well, I don't know if it's simple, but it's on green bar. So I'm going to do a close-up of it. It's called Interactive Program 1 by Jim Unroe. And it was written February 1st, 1979. And he would have had this on the screen and then printed it all out. Wow. So I'm going to close that up and put it over here. And we'll move along to something Tom Wood wrote. And Tom, in February of 1979, and this was actually, I think, reprinted in the Arcadian, kind of explains a little bit about how BASIC works. And this is sort of a tutorial. And he explains a little bit about machine language here. And if you want to know more, that's been scanned. I think it's on Bally Alley. Here's another program that can dump the screen memory. And it's a handwritten program, again. This is, I'm not sure what this is. This is obvious. It looks like it's taken from the, yeah, this is, some pages of this are taken from the Bally Basic Manual, and then it's been expanded on with this chart. And some of this information was reprinted but in the Astro Basic Manual in a little easier to use format. All right, here's this kind of stuff I like. So people would send this on to Bob. And these are some articles. And all these articles are from various places, and they've been scanned from original formats or better scans than these photocopies. But here's a letter from November 6, 1978 from Bally Consumer Products Division to one of its users, and this user was James Jones. And it says, and I want to just guess, I haven't looked at this or read it, but my guess is that it's going to say something along the lines of, sorry you can't find a system in your area, the add-on is not going to come out anytime soon. If you're upset, just wait a little while and it'll be out. Let's see if I'm right. Dear Mr. Jones, thank you for your letter of October 22nd, 1978 regarding centering of the picture on your television receiver. Wow, oh, that's interesting. This is not what I thought at all. The software program in the Bally home library computer contribute a maximum 1/8 inch shift to the right. However, we have found many television receivers add to this condition anywhere from an additional 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. I'm enclosing a home owner's manual for the Bally Professional Arcade. In it, you may note from the photographs the various game playfields. If you have any further questions, you may contact our distributor in your area, Bill Harner in San Diego, California. Wow. And that is from Charles Vollner, National Service Manager. So they were actually answering individuals' questions, including, wow. So here's a program called Bally Professional Arcade from Carl Zinn from Creative Computing. And that's from September 1978 issue. And yeah, that's actually, and here's another one from Electronics Magazine. I don't know what this is about. Well, some of this isn't exactly Bally related. It's about some electronic stuff, so we'll skip that. And here's that article that was in here, but here's the original. Bally uses plain language, which is probably, oh, I'm going to read this because it's about Star Wars, and some people really dig Star Wars. So, Bally computer uses plain language. Fearing that few people will actively want to program their home computers, the makers of these machines are turning to simpler software packages. But whereas many personal computers use some form of BASIC, Bally Corp is coming out with a custom language that uses words instead of letter number combinations to make it seem friendlier. Introduced at this month's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, the new language also has a more glamorous pedigree than most software, being an offshoot of the language used to create the special effects in the movie Star Wars called graphics. And that there's a whole article about how those special effects were created on Bally Alley. If you go to ballyalley.com, you'll be able to find them easily enough by typing in Star Wars into the search box, and it'll come up with the article. I don't know what this is. Some notes from Bob. Here's there's a better scan of this online, but this is an article that made the cover of Electronics Today in 1978. This is a Canadian magazine, which has an article called Bally Arcade, More Than Fun. This is that whole thing. If you want to read the actual article, you can go to my website and read it. Here's something from Tom Wood. Oh, now this is what got everybody going. So earlier, I was talking about the call command. This was printed in early 79. This is from someone named Tom Wood. This is basically, this was reprinted almost word for word. Maybe even some of it was highlighted out, or excuse me, blocked out, and then it was printed like this. But this is you type this in, okay, and what you get is, I think either the word, let's see what it says. Here's a little gem for dedicated Arcadians to try on those homebrew with 115 cells of storage left in them. He means memory. And so you put this into X, and then it changes the location where it's poking it on screen. So basically you're poking these numbers onto the screen, and what you get, it says the above basic statements store a very short machine language routine in memory and execute it. The memory area used is the keyboard input buffer. It may not work on all versions of the arcade, since the absolute memory address of the message to be displayed is coded into it, and as we have seen, Bally has at least 2 versions of the onboard system software. For those interested in the following is the listing of the routine. So basically it's just a very short program, and it's going to display part of a message that says, I think, just over. And this is not calling things correctly. It's calling a subroutine, but it doesn't. I think this is either before they knew how to call it correctly, or he wasn't going to try to explain how to call a subroutine correctly. But eventually they have tutorials on how to call subroutines that return back to basic correctly. And just a couple more things here. These are the specifications for the Bally. So I'm not really going to go over this. I haven't shown this exactly before, but I mean, there's nothing new here. This is something that was handed out by Bally. And there's a comparison here of the system to the Bally. There's comparisons between the Bally, the Apple II, the Commodore PET, the CompuColor, the Exidy Sorcerer, and the Bally Radio Shack systems. And of course, Bally comes out on top. And this is not the same as one I've shown in an earlier video. It's similar though. I don't remember comparing it to the Sorcerer before. Maybe it did. All right, let's go on to the next one. This is the Bally DOS folder. I'm just going to show you here. I'm excited about covering this folder. It's called Bally DOS, and obviously DOS stands for Disk Operating System. That would mean that the Bally has a disk drive. Does the Bally have a disk drive? It does not. Were people always hoping it did so they could save their programs, get extra memory, and have their system act like a computer? They sure were. And this is one of the few people who managed to do it on their own. And I couldn't really remember the details, so I actually went to my own website, ballyarcade.com, to find out those details for myself and remind myself how this worked. First, I'll go through this quickly. So this is basically the order these were in when I got them in the collection. So there's a page here, the letter to Bob. Then there's some data sheets, a whole bunch of data sheets. Familiar with data sheets, they explain how hardware works. This is for a data sheet called the FD17. I'll show you here so you can see it a little better. The FD1771, a floppy disk formatter controller. Then there's another one for another floppy disk controller. Then there are a list of commands for how to basically use it. And this is pages and pages. Then this is the assembly code for Bally RDOS. And this was a version of a DOS that would work with the Astrocade. Now, how the heck was that going to work? Well, in order to remind myself, I had to go through and read what I wrote several years ago when this was posted on my website, ballyarcade.com. Now, if you go to the machine language download section, you can find the source code and download it and check it out. Of course, it's not in a format that you can really use, and even if you had it in a format that was usable, there's no system unless you are a true collector, because let's get going. I'll read how this is. So Arcadian RDOS by Stu, I'm going to call him Haig, from 1980. This is a CP/M-compatible resident disk operating system. This code is designed to interface into the Kromemco system software. And back up here a second, the Kromemco was a system that was like similar to the Altair. It was ran CP/M, and it was very popular in its time period. Very expensive machine. I think it cost several $1,000s. Now, what this person was trying to get that system hooked into his Bally for, I mean, he already had I guess the Kromemco, I mean, you could have gotten a video board for the system that would have been leaps and bounds ahead of the Astrocade. But hey, am I a hacker? Not really. Many people in this community are hackers, back then and now. So it says it's provided with an auto-load feature that will load track 0, sector 0 of drive A starting at RAM locations, and then it says a RAM location. Control will then be passed to the jump just to location. Okay, I'm getting way into it, but that's what this folder's got. Wow, look at this cool stuff. So anyway, we have these opcodes here. So this is all for the Z80, but this is for a Z80 system called the Kromemco. And that was somehow interfaced. I don't think he goes into exactly how it was done hardware-wise, and I don't recall seeing other information regarding this in the collection, but it might be in there. If anyone has ever heard of doing anything like this on other systems, like say, did anyone ever get their Intellivision hooked up to a CP/M machine so that they could save? But I guess no one really had BASIC for that system, so they just wouldn't have done it. I mean, people wanted to do this so they could save their BASIC programs to disk. And since the other systems at that time period didn't have disk-based systems, or even a cartridge that would run BASIC, except for the Atari 2600, let's not forget that, which only gives you a few bytes to do it, so it's not something technically or software feasible. Well, anyway, so that's this folder. I guess it didn't take nearly as long to show because I can't really explain all the details here. You'll have to check it out for yourself if you're interested, and I hope you are, because this is, as far as I can tell, it's unique for game systems from that time period, or any time period really, to hook up into another computer to use their disk drives, I think. I mean, I guess nowadays there's you can do that with Atari 8-bit systems using APE, which is an Atari peripheral emulator, and it basically lets you pretend that your Atari is connected to a very large disk drive. But this was decades before something like that came out. So, all right, let's move on to, I think we have 2 more folders to go through. This folder is blank, or at least the label is blank. And what we have inside is a mishmash of different stuff from the early days of the Arcadian around 1979. I'm not going to go into it in great detail because, I mean, I would have to read it to do that, and I'm not going to go ahead and spend a lot of time reading this. But this is a tutorial. It takes up several pages, like 6 or 8 pages, on how to use computed goto and gosub commands. And it starts off with this: says, "Who says I don't have a computed goto gosub capability in Tiny Basic? With a little care and a few basic statements, we can branch based on a variable to our heart's desire. For example," and then he goes on to show an example. And this is all about programming basics. So I don't recall seeing this in the Arcadian. Might have been typed up and put in there. In the early days, a lot of stuff was accepted and just put in there. So it probably was. But this was written by, let's see if we can't see someone's name, because I don't see a name otherwise. I'm going to give the guy credit, or let's see. I don't see any names. So sorry, can't credit the author of this unless this is from Bob Fabris, but I don't think so. So there's a tutorial that might have been in the Arcadian, and if it was, it would have been credited there. Here's some notes about the RF modulator by Bob. Then there's a lot of programs, copies here. And these were probably put here because they were used in early editions of the Arcadian. So we have Simon by Brett Bilbray, and yes, that's the game Simon, like where you've got various colors and you've got to repeat the patterns. Let's see what we've got here. We've got Reverse by Brett Bilbray and Mike Toth. So there's that one. Here's a handwritten letter to Bob. And I think this is by Ron Schwank, yeah. Let's see what this one says. This is from March 9th, I'm going to think 1979. Here are some programs at last. And he says he's got Mastermind, One Check, a solitaire checkers game, and Batnum. We kind of talked about this yesterday, but these are the programs which are coming up in a moment here. Then we have Convert Hexadecimal to Decimal program by Ernie Sams. And a program similar to this was printed in the Astro Basic manual. So here's Battle of Numbers, Batnum. Here's Mastermind by Ron Schwenk. Then we have a program called One Check, Solitaire Checker Game. And I talked about it, I think, a couple days ago in my video that I made. But I don't recall this being published in the Arcadian, which is odd considering it says good. But maybe it was published in the Arcadian. I can't remember all the programs published there. So here we have a newsletter. It's printed on nice quality paper. This is not for the Astrocade, but it's a newsletter from January 1979, and this has been scanned, called The Printed Circuit, the monthly newsletter of the Computer Hobbyist Group of North Texas, Volume 5, Number 1. Now, does that mean they've been around for 5 years? The editors were Bill Fuller, Gary Davis, and Mike Firth. Publishing circulation by Ted Palmer. The General Unmeeting Summary. The 6800 Users Group Report. The TRS-80 Users Group Report. And later on, maybe even in this issue, these would be called SIGs, meaning Special Interest Groups. And the 6502, let's see, the 6502 User Group, let's see, talks about what they are. Merits of the memory boards, calendar of dates. I just love that. I wish I could make a calendar of dates and people would show up, you know, a couple dozen people and be like, hey, what you been doing with your computer lately? Community bulletin board, special interest groups. Let's see what the special interest groups were. So they did have some. They already had SIGs. The Apple Core, the Digital Groups User Group, the PDP-11 group, wow, the 6800 group, the 6502 group, the Sol users group. Wow, I didn't ever know anything like that existed. I think they only made like a couple of thousand Sol systems. The TI 9900 user group, and this would have been, would this predate the TI 99-4? I might have. And the PET users group. But that is the CPU that was used in the TI 99-4. And I'm not saying 4A because the 4A wasn't released yet. What have we got here? We have some more. Nothing in here seems to be related to the Astrocade. A SIG Silly. Or semi-silly. Let's see. What is this supposed to do? Modification of baud rates. So, improvements for the SSM1. Wow. This is like gibberish to me. I have looked at this, but I've never really read it because I don't think I found anything that were... Chuckles Corner. The author of the Dallas-Fort Worth 6800 group. It's obvious, so... This is a pretty nice little newsletter. Nothing in here dedicated to the Bally, but if you're interested in this stuff in general, you'll find something useful in there. Then we have a letter sent by Guy Micklemore of ABC Hobbycraft. And his letters are always interesting and neat, so you might want to look up this one. This is from January 29th, 1979. Let's see. Let's see what we can see here. I'm going to just read this paragraph because it's talking about local distributors. The local distributors are having an open house this weekend to introduce the new Bally equipment. I'll give you all the details then if I find out anything interesting. One new development you may not know about is the release of a new arcade model with only 2 hand controls. The new unit will sell for $299.95, with the original BPA-1100 becoming a deluxe model at a price increase, about $325, I believe. Speaking as a dealer, I'm unhappy with this, as it will hurt sales. As an owner, I'm just glad I bought mine early. And, wow, that's interesting. I wasn't aware it was ever sold like that. Well, I guess, did the first systems come with 4 controllers? I can't even remember. But then they all did come with. So maybe recently, over the last few weeks, the Bally Alley discussion group on groups.io have been talking about what these Bally serial numbers mean. So maybe some of them tell us how many joysticks came with the system. That's interesting. Enclosed a letter. The masthead I made for the Arcadian. I don't think that was used. Yeah. All right, we'll skip that one. And then here's a program called Player Piano. Let's see, it says, using existing Player Piano program from Bally Basic Book. And overall, this is a tutorial, I think. Modified Player Piano for learning on the ampersand 16 to 23 commands. And these commands could be used to control the music ports directly. Instead of having only beeps and boops that would come out of the Bally Basic, you could actually have actual programs create real music. And this is by someone named Chuck Tomka, and he ended up being the one who wrote a few tutorials on using sound in the early days of the Astrocade. Great work by him. And I think I mentioned him in an earlier video in this series, that he wrote a program that I was able to use to dial numbers from my arcade using an actual landline. Okay, what do we got here? A letter from February 19th, 1979. And it says someone... Ronald Schweitzer wants to subscribe, and he says he found that ways that he can use AND, OR, and XOR. And these were common ways. Like if you bought a book on BASIC in 1978 or something like that, a lot of programs or a lot of BASICs didn't have where to use the Boolean operators AND, OR, and XOR. So what you had to do was you had to come up with ways to do it, and that was a way to do it. And I think the reason they were left out of the early basics was because people didn't understand what they did, but they're quite useful. Let's see. This is from Glenn Pogue, and he comes up with ways, I think it must be ahead, yeah, to have sine, cosine, and the tangent functions so that you could use them in programs. But they were written in BASIC, and I believe they were very, very slow. They worked, though. Usually the best way to do it was to come up with a table that would let you estimate them, and it'd be much faster. Here's something from May 1st, 1979, from Frank L-O-Y-K-E. Here are my commands on the programs you sent, or my comments. In general, without something, I don't know which programs he sent him. He sent them a Star Trek game. He sent them... Zap It is excellent. Wumpus works well, too. Play words is not on the tape. Mr. Commits program works well enough. I think it is pretty slick. So these are people who wanted to well, yeah, dig into this if you're interested in people who are giving feedback on programs that were sent to them by Bob to see if they should be printed in the Arcadian. And here's a good example. And we came across this program, it was, I think, yesterday, a program called Bally Football. And he says, P.S. Football doesn't work, and I didn't think it was good enough to fix. So he must have had some problem loading it. And here's our buddy Stu again, coming up with something, explains how to use the random command. So this would have been for a tutorial. I don't know if that ran or not. We have one more folder to go through, and then we are done here, and we'll see what's coming up next. This is the last folder we're going to cover today, and it's going to be a quick one because there's not too much in this one. This one's called RF Modulator, and this isn't actually related to the Astrocade's RF Modulator, but I just opened this real quick and took a look at the two documents that are in here, and I almost fainted when I saw what one of them said. So we have here an integrated TV modulation system, and this is an article that was from 1977, if you can see that, and it's written by someone named, here we go, this person's name is Milton Wilcox, and he's talking about how to get TV games to have RF out, basically, which is important for the Bally Astrocade, but it has RF out already. So this would explain how it would work way over my head. And this is the last piece of documentation, and it is simply called, I don't know where it came from, it doesn't say, but it says, TV video modulator, color or black and white, cables $1 each, switch $1.50, FCC approved type. And it talks about, I'm trying to hide the bottom of the page because I want to, I don't know, people who are, most people probably won't have heard of what I'm going to say here in a moment, but this is the TV switch modulator that was used in the Video Brain home computer. Now that's a weird one, isn't it? That system isn't known too well and is extremely, extremely rare. But I don't know if this is accurate, but if it's accurate, then this is the TV modulator that was used in it. This is the chip, the LM1889, and you could look that up. It even says where. On page 178, section 10 on page 151 of some catalog. But there we are. That's the last thing I'm going to cover for this video. But I will be showing what's coming up next. I'm not actually sure. We're getting close. I think we only have 10 or 15 folders left, and then we are done with this box, and we'll move on to another box and hopefully not spend 50 videos covering it or something like that. But we'll see. I'm glad that we're making our way through these. I hope you're enjoying the ride. Let's see what's coming up next. The 5 folders that I will be covering in my next video are labeled W, I have no idea what that means, Arcade Projects, Mail, Stuff to File, and Insiders. And I have under little and tiny writing, I put Box 1 folder 47. And that doesn't mean anything to me, but it is my handwriting. So it must have been something when I was doing scanning. So let's take a brief look at each one of these. I try to spend maybe a minute on each one, and then we are done with this video, and I will sign off until the next video where I'll continue covering a few more folders, these in particular. So I'm going to spend a minute or two on each folder. The one labeled W, don't know what that means, but we've got a letter written to Bob Fabris from someone named Mark, I think. I don't know what it says, but we'll figure that out in the next episode. Here's a typewritten letter, another memo, and this is from someone named Warren, from Avion Associates, Coronado Airport. Is that Albuquerque? Wow, look at that. This is where I live. Coronado Airport. Why that's in here, I don't know. That's kind of neat. I think my buddy Chris Plus, if I'm correct, did you have a brother, I think, who is a pilot, and did he ever fly out of Coronado Airport? I think that airport's now closed, but it was here for quite a few years. It was a smaller airport for like little planes, you know, little prop planes. Here's wiring. Oh, I think there was a request for wiring stuff. You know, I'm gonna get caught up in the details if I try to explain what these are. But here we go, just letters, more. So basically, W has letters in it from various people. I like it when people put stuff like this, but I'm not even going to say what it says because they're just okay. So this is basically letters, lots of letters. Cool. I love looking at folders with letters in it. Next up, we have our arcade projects. We have a tone decoder, phase lock, loop. These seem to be data sheets. We have add a $3 light pen to your video display, and that's an article from I don't know where, but someplace. Byte, February 75 or 76. I can't quite make it out. All right, we have something called mail, and this is probably going to take up the chunk of what we cover in the next episode. Lots and lots and lots of letters. Lots of letters and notes and notes and lots of notes. But before I even get to some of this, I'll just go through it a little bit at a time. Just kind of briefly touching on some of these things here. Oh, there's some neat stuff. George Hale wrote a really cool program called Sonic Satellite, which is from, it's similar to Missile Command. Like it's okay. I'm going to show you a date. And now, if I can back this up, I am not sure. But it says February 14th, 1979. And around this time, this fellow wrote a program very much like Missile Command. Looks like Missile Command, but acts a little differently. Do you notice anything about the dates I just said? Yeah, 1979 is a year before Missile Command. So, I mean, it's obviously not the same, but it is so similar. So the idea was floating around before Missile Command came around. University of Michigan. So this is from Brett. So, ding! Brett gets his name in again. So far, maybe every single episode. Tom Wood stuff. Radio Frank Incorporated. Man, I love that this... Oh, man, look at this. Space Race. There's a game that never came out. Oh, it did. That's right. It was called Star Wars. But it was originally going to be called Space Race. So many, many letters. We'll get through these next time. In fact, this one might require some extra stuff. People were always trying to come up with names for the Arcadian or letterheads for Bob. And here's someone's idea of a letterhead. And obviously they couldn't have used that because that was probably copyrighted, this little fun and brains symbol. But it would have been a neat idea. Bally Arcadian hand controls. Notes about that. The audio cassette interface. Wow, that's interesting. Oh, that's by Richard Belton. He ended up doing some really cool stuff for the Astrocade. More letters, more letters. Many, many more letters. Handwritten letters. This is from... I don't know what this is exactly, but I love it when people would handwrite little pictures like this in their notes to help describe what was going on. So this is obviously something about gunfight, but if you take a quick look, does that focus? Look at the little, like the cowboys' heads. They've got little happy faces on them, I think. That's awesome. Love it. Keep on going, keep on going. Handwriting, just love that handwriting. Okay, here's another example. Colors on the screen. And his example, it says, such as, and then he says, red, green, blue. There's a little, I don't know, little robot-looking character. More programs, or a short program, don't know what it says. But we'll skip that one. We'll get into, what is there, two more folders? One more, yeah, two more folders. I'll keep this one here. And this one is just called Stuff to File. Don't know what this is. This is a video test hardware. So a VTR component TV. So... Oh, it's a television by J.C. Penney. Wow, that's... wow, I don't really understand it, but it's a small TV for $199, which is very inexpensive for the time period. So I'm not going to get into that too much. Oh, here's why it was here. It's in there because there's a Bally Arcade ad. And this is from Video Magazine, which is the first place where arcade game reviews were ever put. Went on to become Video Games Magazine. Yeah. Chris++, I'm probably wrong about that, but yeah, definitely this is from Video Magazine. And if you could set me straight on the people who wrote for that magazine. I know their names out, but off the top of my head, I cannot think of them. And more letters, more letters. Memory dumper. There's another memory dumper program. More letters. This one's a long one from John Collins. Lots of stuff there. And this is a couple more letters there. And then we're moving on to the last one, which is called Insiders. I don't know what this is. It seems empty. But nope, it's got one page. Well, since it's only got one page, I'll just show you what it is. It says enclosed, it's $20 so far. I don't know, maybe that'll make more sense to me when I actually read it in detail and cover it. So thanks for coming along again and joining me. As my friend Quintech Retro says, thanks for joining me on my ride through basically my collection. And I hope that you are enjoying yourself and come back for the next episode. Thanks for watching. And if you get a chance, pull out an Astrocade and use it. And if you don't have one, what am I going to say? That's right. Try to emulate one. I think you'll enjoy yourself. See you next time.